Hello and welcome to Plot Twisters.
This is a podcast where we take movies and twist the plot to see if we can make them better, and if not, more pleasant.
At the moment, we're talking about teen movies from the 90s.
On this episode, Pleasantville from 1998.
I'm Anders, and everybody likes me. It's not just because I'm a great bowler.
I'm Emma. Hey, who did Muffin take to the masquerade ball when her date came down with measles?
Wait, no, I know this. It was that guy. No, wait.
We talk about this all the time. I can't believe you don't know this. I thought you were a real fan.
Yeah, but like season 1 wasn't that good because they were still figuring out their characters.
Yeah, true.
And I always tell people start with season 2.
Yeah, make it through season 1. Make it through. And then season 2, amazing.
Exactly. It's just like
so
Schitt's Creek and Parks and Rec.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. The answer was, it was her father, just so you know.
Oh, that's cute, and I like it, but also it's a bit
Why
like...
is she called Muffin, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Is she a dog?
That just asks more questions. Is she a dog? And also, if you take your dad to the dance, I don't know, sounds like it won't be the most fun dance.
He's not going to have a very good time, is he? No. So there's this amazing movie that we just watched, and we've just spent quite a lot of our like real estate kind of talking about this one quote.
Muffin
and whether or not
Muffin is...
So this was the movie Pleasantville.
Yeah.
I'd never seen this film before, which is quite astounding, really, because it's so up my street, and I just like to publicly say to everyone that I've spoken to about movies before in my life, why didn't you tell me to watch this movie before? Because I really liked it, and you've all let me down. Just want to say that. So
I'm sorry I didn't tell you to watch this movie.
Yeah, you specifically.
Telling you to watch a bunch of very, very bad movies from the same era. I thought you'd seen this movie before.
You're the worst one of all because you've had so many opportunities to recommend me films and they've all been terrible. But yeah,
you seriously haven't seen Pleasantville before?
No, I haven't. I know.
That blows my mind.
I call myself a film fan, and I have a disappointing track record.
Let's each say the movie that we've never seen before that we're embarrassed about.
Okay, ready?
And then it's out there and it's fine.
At the same time?
It's fine. At the same time? You want to do it at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
The Godfather. Are you for real? Get out of my head! Get out of my head. Get out of my head. Okay. We're more the same than different, you and I.
I know. Yeah. And it now feels like a thing that I haven't seen it, you know?
Totally.
It's like the people who weren't watching Game of Thrones and everyone was telling them to watch Game of Thrones, and the more people tell you to watch it, kind of puts you off.
Yeah, that was me. Same thing happened to me. I also didn't see Star Wars until I was in college for that exact reason.
Exactly, yeah.
Turns out they're all just good. When people are like, you should see this thing, you should see this thing, it's not because they don't want you to be cool, right?
Yeah.
It's not because they want to take away your edginess, right? We're all bespoke, we're all unique, get over it, right? It's because good content is good.
Also, like, you're not defined by the stuff that you've seen.
No, exactly. It's also about what you wear and, you know, like the music you listen to.
Which lunch table you sit at in the cafeteria.
Well, look,
right?
Exactly. Well, I'm really glad that we've aired that out, right? And I feel better, and I hope you feel better.
I do.
Right?
Yeah,
okay,
I feel good getting that off my chest. Yeah.
Now, here's a movie that I have seen, and that movie is Pleasantville. I've seen this movie a bunch of times, and I'm so glad that we finally can talk about it. And you know, gosh, I can't wait to hear what you thought of it. Mm-hmm. But maybe before we do that, one of us should do a synopsis of this movie.
So Pleasantville, what a movie, eh?
Hey.
The storyline is the following. There's a kid called David Wagner. It is the remarkable Tobey Maguire. Everyone's favourite. Everybody's favourite guy, Tobey Maguire.
The Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man. Look out, he's a Spider-Man. David is a kid who is obsessed with a TV show, which, I mean, I will say at this point, you know, it was probably quite difficult for either of us to really relate to that at this stage, isn't it?
No. Obsessed with a TV show? That's weird.
Like, he loves quoting it. He loves TV show trivia. He loves talking about it with his friends.
Abnormal. Doesn't
already
happen.
You and
Can't
I are
relate.
just Just out of there. Doesn't happen. No. Can't relate. So he's addicted to TV. There's a specific show that he really likes called Pleasantville, which is set in the 1950s. It's a kind of classic, well, it's almost like a kind of slightly elevated, synthesized parody of a 1950s American sitcom. It's about a very small village where everyone's having a nice time and everything's fine and everything's lovely. His sister, Jennifer, she's going on a date, isn't she? I think that's her main thing. She's potentially going to have a date. They're both in their house, they're fighting over the remote, and they break the remote. A dude turns up in a van, and he's like a TV fixing guy, and he gives them another remote, which is like if you were doing like a school play of like the magic remote. That's what it would look like. It was like, I feel like they could have made it just look like a normal remote.
Nobody wants that clunky weird remote.
It's like a big metal
take
thing.
This one instead. Okay, thanks. Is there a Netflix button? Is this thanks for this piece of metal.
Neither of them really question it. It kind of reminded me of, have you seen Click with Adam Sandler?
It was very Click-like.
It was kind of like that.
It was Click-like.
It was Click adjacent. Yeah. So anyway, they have this new remote, they press it, they get transported into the world of Pleasantville, the TV show. Everything's in black and white. I mean, the visuals are very, very important in this film. So, everything goes from colour, 90s, to black and white. They are then in the essentially story world of this TV show, Pleasantville. Everything behaves as it would, as if it was consistent with the universe of the show. So things like there's no toilets, which I thought was very fun because like people don't go to the toilet on TV. Everyone has their like little routines. Everything is quite sort of vanilla and sterile in the way that everyone behaves, and everything's very lovely. And then it kind of goes down this wild road. So there's this moral journey that they need to go on. It's essentially, in order for you to be better people, you need to exist in this world and learn some kind of moral lesson, and then I'll send you back. Which is kind of like the Alice in Wonderland archetype, right? And it's in loads of stories. It's like, you go here, do a bunch of stuff, and then you can go back. And it ends up being this very interesting and I think pretty powerful metaphor. People start essentially realizing stuff because these two kids from the 90s bring a bunch of revelations with them and a bunch of new ideas that sort of infect the people around them, and they then start to have a kind of awakening. It's like an Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden moment where their knowledge awakens them and they start appearing in colour. So the first thing that we see, I think, was a rose, wasn't it? That you see a red rose, and the people within this world can see it in colour as well. And the people who are more sort of aware, the more aware people, can see. Well, they turn into Technicolor more. And then we also have the people who are not very aware and they stay black and white, and there becomes this sort of social tension between them. The mayor, he is very angry about this change. He's very angry about people changing the way of life and doing things differently. So he comes up with this sort of policy to to try and keep everything to stay the same. This kind of very, quite heavy-handed, conservative manifesto analogy, and eventually, it works itself out, and the whole world turns to Technicolor, and then these kids go back to the 90s.
Well, one of them does.
Oh, that's right. Yes, no, you're right. One of them does, and the other one stays in the 50s. And yeah.
She just stays there.
Well, spoiler alert, I have quite a few things to say about the sister character that we can kind of move on to.
Me too.
Because there was a couple of holes, I think, and one of the reasons why I think that is because it was a very, very ambitious concept. It's arguably it fits very nicely into all the movies towards the end of the 90s were a kind of response to this Y2K theory, and
I like it.
a lot of them were challenging reality. Things like The Matrix and The Truman Show. I think this fits very clearly into that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it was very ambitious, a lot of amazing ideas, and not very much time. So there were some things that weren't super well executed.
It was soupy. I think I texted you and said, "This is a rich, thick stew of a movie."
Sure is.
What I'm hoping, I'm hoping 3 things come out of this episode of our podcast, Emma. I hope that we do a fun twist.
Okay.
Thing number 2.
It's a lot of pressure to put on me.
But I mean, just relax and trust the process. Thing number 2. I hope it sounds smart. Because this is a smart movie.
Already, again, ambitious.
Lols. And thing number 1 is I hope that you can help me understand what actually this movie is about. That's contradicting number 2, but potentially helping number 3. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Because I think this movie is about a lot of things all at the same time. And the whole, like, turning Technicolor was analogous to some things.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, can you tell me, what was this movie about, Emma?
I believe, personally, that there is no right answer to that question, really. Because for any movie, and I know, again, this is incredibly pretentious, so I am sorry, but pieces of art like this really are about what you interpret from them. It's so annoying because I have a lot of very smart things to say, but I always feel like the worst.
This movie's about specific things, right?
Factual documentary.
It's about some things.
It's about some things, yeah. So I would say that the interesting thing about this film is I do think it is open to interpretation, what it's about.
Right.
I would say that if you were to condense it down and say a simplified an explanation as you possibly can as to what it's about, I would say it's about breaking out of a collective mindset.
Right.
So it's about waking up and discovering an outside world. What that outside world is can be a huge variety of different things. So there are a few different moments where I kind of read it as different things. One of the first things that I thought about was so there's a moment with the TV mother. So she is called
Malcolm in the Middle's mom. Oh no, the one
in the
Pleasantville mom.
Betty.
Yeah.
Played by Joan Allen. She starts to demonstrate that she is starting to feel kind of quite uneasy with her world. Yeah. You see her pick up on things, and she kind of goes quite cold and looks unhappy, and eventually she's one of the characters that sort of wakes up into this new reality and turns Technicolor. Yeah. With her, at the start of her journey, her experience kind of made me think about a bit of a mental health analogy. Oh. I would say that I kind of, and again, this is very much my reading. I'm not saying this was in there at all, but like that feeling of like looking around and being like something's not right, and a feeling of like generally being unsettled. I can really relate to that from like an anxiety standpoint. I definitely would say that's a good depiction for my experience anyway, of kind of being like, things aren't right, what's going on, something's off. Right. So I think there's definitely some elements there that you could read into it. I'd say there's also a potential like LGBTQ plus narrative in there of like particularly if we're looking at The Matrix, which recently the writers came out and said that they both do think of it as a trans analogy. I think there's stuff you could say there. I think there's stuff you could say about feminism. Again, with Betty's character, there's moments where she actively defies her husband, and that connects to breaking out of a lifestyle choice. She says, "I'm not going to make you dinner anymore." that was, I thought, a very empowering moment. And then and there's obviously lots of references to race in there as well, and particularly the use of the term coloured in reference to the people turning from black and white into Technicolor, and how that connects to words that have been used historically to describe people of colour, and how they were marginalised as well, in terms of those people being kind of, you know, outsiders, I guess.
Totally.
From the system. So I think there's loads of ways that you can read it, and I would say that I think a potential criticism of this film is that there was almost too many ways that you could read it, that it potentially watered down the message a little bit.
Hey man, like I always say, if you put too many ingredients in a stew, it might be delicious, but people won't really be able to describe it. You know what I mean? They won't really tell you, what was that stew like? Well,
you've really got stew on your mind
There's a lot going on there. There's carrots, celery, beef, some other... I don't know. We're both vegetarians. It's a weak analogy to
Linda McCartney sausages.
Exactly. Lentils, probably lots of lentils.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. If you play Maybe I'm Amazed backwards, it's there's a recipe for ripping lentil soup. The reason I ask, and that makes me feel a little bit better, because at the end of watching it for the podcast, I wasn't sure if this movie was about feminism or racism or homophobia or just, you know, pseudo time travel kind of vibes. I wasn't sure what it was about, but I just kind of went, this sends a powerful message, and I just didn't know exactly what it was that they were trying to say. But maybe to your point, if we're being, you know, nicer to it, it's like everybody sees something different in the mirror, right? You know, so this movie, I'm sure, resonates differently with different folks. Whilst watching the movie, I definitely felt like, a lot of people would feel really strongly about this,
but not you.
I don't know. The thing is, when you know that thing, it's all of this is like, if there was a cue for the stew, right? I just found myself near the front of the line, right?
Yeah.
Because my hometown was like a 1990s version of Pleasantville.
There's this wider message in this film, I think, about realization. I would say, you know, if I was a kind of script consultant for this film, I would have tried to pick out specifically what the theme, the strongest theme in it is, and I think the strongest theme is this idea of realization, of awakening. I think like we said, you know, people experience awakenings in a variety of different ways. Commonly, people who are LGBTQ+, people who are in situations where society is telling them that they should be one way and they actually think that they should be another way, or they should be another way. You have to go through some kind of awakening experience. So this was a nice way of framing that. I also think, though, that it's interesting, maybe for us as 2020 viewers now, this feels like it's we need more than this now. Do you know what I mean? I would be interested to know if in 1998 this film was, you know, if I'd seen it then and I'd been the right age for it then, it would have been like, wow, this is amazing. But now it's like, okay, we're a bit beyond this, you know? I guess so. For maybe this helps. When I watched this movie in the 90s, I thought this movie was about racism. That's it, right? That's what I thought this movie was about. Because it's overtly, I guess at some level, as you mentioned, it's about, you know, the people who are literally different colors, right? And I remember that sign, seeing that sign that says no colors, no coloreds. I think it says no coloreds.
I remember seeing that sign and feeling uncomfortable forever. And that scene at the end, you know, when they're all in the courthouse and all the people in Technicolor are in the top balcony and all the black and white people in the bottom, and it's like, oh yeah, because of racism, because of Jim Crow, because of that was a thing, like To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Same thing, right? Who's the real Boo Radley in this story? And I think it's, you know, the awakening subcult when your brain awakens. That's your boo.
Yeah.
But watching it now, I think if you know, but I think in the 90s, perhaps people thought it was about that one thing. I don't know, you know.
Well, and I would say that again, there's lots of different ways that you could argue this. I think I would say that you could say it's cool that there's a quite a simple poetic metaphor to describe that experience.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to show this to a like super conservative person and see what they thought of it. And if it's like, do you get it now? Do you understand? We're literally showing you this in the most straightforward possible way. Do you get why this is a problem? But at the same time, it's like, I personally think with something like racism, I can't speak for history, but now you kind of need to be specific.
Totally.
And using analogies like this, it sort of waters down the experience of people who are experiencing the issue, particularly with something like racism. You know, this film didn't actually have any people of color in it.
Nope.
It was all white people.
Black, white, or Technicolor, they were all white.
Yeah, so it's like, if you are going to make this big statement and you're using this setting and you're kind of, it's like a nice way of putting it to make it make sense to people.
Yeah.
There's benefits to that, but also, you need to be specific about the experiences now.
So, totally. Totally. And that's why if they made it today, it would be a very different movie. But, you know, here's the thing. Thinking about, like, if you turn into Technicolor, it's because you have been awakened to something that is not your sort of routine, right? Your eyes are opened. I like that analogy. I like it. And I'll tell you why. You know, in the beginning, we're learning what's it like to be in Pleasantville, and it's from the word go. It's actually not that pleasant. It's a bit sort of not so nice, but it's nice in a way. Stifled. And you know that thing where it's like every time the basketball players throw the baskets, the ball goes right into the basket, and it's like Mr. Johnson, you know, the painter guy who owns the guy who owns a soda shop and then eventually becomes a painter guy. Yeah. Like, his routine is so fixed that if one thing doesn't happen, he can't do anything. So he just literally rubs the counter with a cloth until the like the paint comes off, you know? Yeah. And like, but what I liked about his story in particular, and I guess his story was one of many stories that happened, it wasn't the main story, is like, this guy just follows his routine every day, doesn't question anything, and just does, you know, the same thing the same way every day. And he's so scared to say, hey, there's this other thing that I kind of like doing, I think, but I won't even acknowledge it to myself, right? And that thing is, he likes painting, and he knows it because the one element of painting in his life is painting the Christmas, you know, window. And I just think that, like, that's a nice thing to consider that I think we can all relate to. If you have found a moment in your life where you've realized, damn, I'm really into this thing that I didn't know I was into before, and that thing gives you like joy and fills your life with love and happiness, and all of a sudden everything feels like it matters, right? You know, for you it was puppetry. For me, it's craft beer and metal detecting. But the through line is as crystal clear, right? As a laser, which is when we find things that give us joy. Isn't that what life is all about?
I really wish I'd never told you about the puppetry thing.
I wish you'd tell me more about your puppetry. I want to know about moves. I want to know if you were a lefty or a righty, you know, with your hands movements, or was it both?
What's my puppet voice? I'm a puppet. Yeah, and I really love the storyline of Mr. Johnson. That was definitely one of my favorite parts of the whole film. I think him and the mother, I thought were very, very good characters.
Great.
And specifically the part about him seeing art. There was a really nice theme there of actually appreciating things, I suppose, isn't it? Because seeing the sky blue, for us as a viewer, you go, wow, look how blue the sky is. That's amazing. Look at these artworks. Like the bit where he turns the page and there's there's a Monet painting, and he's looking at these pictures, and you're given this lovely frame, which is, this is a person who's not only seeing these pieces of work for the first time, but they also love art, and they're also seeing colours used by famous artists for the first time, you know. And I think I could quite easily Google Monet water lilies right now, and I could look at them and I just go, yeah, that's that painting.
Yeah.
But there is something nice, I think, about just going, do you know what? This is a person who is experiencing how incredible this is, and as a viewer of the film, you're going, it is incredible.
It is incredible.
That's amazing. And like I said, with the blue sky and with the red rose, you get this moment of like, wow, this stuff looks so good, but it's all stuff that we see in real life. So there's this, you kind of appreciate it.
Yeah. They were unapologetic about that art too. So that he gives him this art book, and the first picture is two nude men. So here's this black and white soda shop guy who's just making burgers in Pleasantville, but secretly he wants to be an artist. And this, through this revelation, the first piece of artwork he sees is beautiful and really intense, and he just kind of goes, I loved that. I loved that even in the 90s, this movie was pushing that and sharing that kind of artwork first and foremost. But every page he's turning this really beautiful, amazing art. And you're right. Us viewers are going, yeah, it's beautiful.
I think that other people's opinions and the fact that other people have experienced things before us has an impact on how we feel about stuff, and sometimes it's nice to experience them in isolation, and this kind of gave a little flavor of that.
Right, because and also because the movie starts and it's black and white, and then some of the first things you see really really pop, right?
Yeah.
You know what, this movie, I mean, it's probably an obvious comparison, but I could not help but think of a couple of movies, and the first one was The Wizard of Oz, because it was the same thing. It's like she's living in Kansas, everything's pretty gray, farm, wind,
Mania.
all that stuff, and then she goes to this magical land, and boom, Technicolor.
If I could time travel,
and
I could choose some experiences to have, specifically cinematic ones.
Yeah.
One of them would be to see the film Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock as a, contemporary viewer.
Oh man, they were so scared in there.
They were so scared.
Everybody was so scared.
And that film where the train comes at, I don't know which one it is, but the one where the train comes at the audience. But the second one would be to see The Wizard of Oz as a contemporary viewer, because I think that would have been just mind-blowing.
It blew people's minds. They had only ever seen black and white movies, and then all of a sudden, A, it's Judy Garland, B, Wizard of Oz is dope, and C, oh right, everything's in flip and color, and it was a tease because it started out black and white.
Yeah.
Oh man,
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
So good. So you mentioned it already, but the other movie this movie kind of made me think about was The Truman Show.
Yeah.
Because because they're both about being trapped in a TV show and wanting to discover more, right? And B, because I guess, it was the late 90s and they both have that sort of the Y2K is coming vibe.
Absolutely. It's annoying because it's so cliche, but one of the first times I saw The Truman Show was a genuinely mind-blowing experience for me. Yeah. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, because I may have mentioned this before, I'm really interested in the idea of simulated realities. And I think this idea of somebody becoming self-aware about their environment is super interesting. So kind of this idea of characters within a universe becoming aware of what's going on is very, very cool, very interesting. And it kind of made me think a lot about how TV shows function and how they work, because in order to have, for any kind of cinematic story, you create something called a story world, right? So a story world is not only the place where it takes the setting, but it's also the way that the world functions, right? So if I was to say to you, what's the story world like for Game of Thrones?
See, you gotta You got a bunch of kingdoms.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of different families. All of them are feuding. Each one wants to be the best one. They all have different variations, but it's pretty much just swords and fighting each other. And also there's dragons. But the key thing is death is all around you. Everybody you know is going to die. Nothing comes easy, even if you're a Lannister. And spoiler alert, there's also dragons. And that's Game of Thrones.
Yes. Nailed it. But that's totally I think one of the things that was unusual about Game of Thrones for a lot of us was the fact that our favourite characters could just die. And I mean, no spoilers, but some pretty major characters die pretty early on that you super wouldn't expect to have died.
Right.
And so this idea of like, oh, okay, people can just die and nobody's safe. That's a very interesting thing to have introduced into the story world because it's not what we were expecting. So, that's why it was cool.
I love that.
In the story world specifically of Pleasantville, everything is very pleasant. Everything is nice. Everyone's having a nice time. There's no problems. There's no fire. There's no rain. Everything is perfect.
Yeah, to the point where there's a like you're right. There's fire. There's a fire. There's firemen, but there's no fire, and they have umbrellas, but just as props for the plays because it never rains.
Yeah, and so there's these kind of rules that exist that need to exist for the TV show to keep working. So from a writing perspective, if you're writing a TV show or a film or anything, any kind of story actually, you have to set yourself rules that you need to stick to unless you have a very, very, very good reason to break them.
Right.
But if you break from your rules, your audience doesn't understand the world anymore. They don't understand what this place is like. If I was like, okay, I'm writing Game of Thrones episode, 10, and suddenly somebody like gets on a train or like even if a character just went, oh, we can't do magic anymore because that doesn't exist anymore, that's not a thing.
Didn't you read in the daily in the Daily Lannister, like, magic isn't a thing now. We thought it was for a while, but it's not anymore.
Even if you gave a super super convincing reason for it, unless that was the whole purpose of the show, I don't think that would work, and you'd lose people's interest, right? You'd be like, oh, okay, well, they can't do magic anymore, so all right.
And to tell you more about it, here's Littlefinger playing the ukulele. Ding, 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 ding. Magic's not a thing.
Exactly. So that's the story world thing, and it's very interesting because obviously in the story world of Pleasantville, these rules are the things that start to get broken, and that's what the mayor kind of gets frustrated about, but it's clever because it's also talking about society, and it's talking about society's rules and how those are similar to a story world in a TV show. It's very, very clever.
Totally. Totally.
And they use this idea of a very pleasant 1950s television show in which I think the purpose of the show like that would just be to make everyone feel better to demonstrate how the same thing can be applied to real life, which is like everyone being like, everything must be nice, these things, this is you got to be pleasant, no nastiness please, and how that can be used in a toxic way to actually erase change. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Amazing. And I think the extra layer of this movie that made it extra delicious and thick, stew-like, if you will.
You love this stew. You love it.
I love it so much. I brought my biggest spoon. It's huge.
A ladle.
It's a ladle. See a ladle. I think that it's even more interesting because it is a TV show. And then they're sucked into that TV show. But now the things that they do not just have an effect on the people right then and there, right? Like, taking people up to Lover's Lane and pinning them or whatever. But also, like, there are ripples of change, like with things turning into Technicolor, and the fact that because a few folks have gone up to Lover's Lane, the basketball team goes from being able to sink every shot without fail to, it all starts to fall apart. So you get this feeling that, like, this world is falling apart. And I found that to be really quite juicy and interesting.
but yeah, and it is funny what you said there about it being the fact that it's a TV show. You know, one of the differences between writing TV and writing movies is that a movie is about a situation, whereas TV has to have these rules that will allow it to keep going. You know, it has to have an engine that will keep running, and rules that will allow it to keep functioning. Whereas, yeah, like I said, a film is just, here's this person, what's happening to them right now, what's going to happen to them, and then that's done. And I think that's why TV is so interesting, because it can just keep going, and why it is comparable to social rules in a strange way. Just to massively switch tone here, if you were going to get stuck in a TV show to learn some kind of moral lesson, which TV show would you be stuck in? Do you think?
Oh my gosh!
Which one would you like to be stuck in, and which one would do you think would give you the kind of situation that you would need in order to become a better person or whatever?
Whoa! Two very different places. Two very different places.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the one that I definitely would go to hopefully become a better human. I mean, I already think I'm pretty great, so I'd only need a couple of episodes, right? Just to
Hard
top
to
up.
know. Yeah.
Just to top up, if you will, right? It would have to be Quantum Leap.
Nice.
You ever see Quantum Leap?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so good. I mean, literally, that's probably an easy answer, because that show literally is like, here's a dude.
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
You gotta do something good. You gotta make it not about you and save a baby or whatever. And every time you get to roll the dice, maybe you're gonna go home, maybe you won't. Just to like have a fun, like, you know, just for a fun time, rather. I'd probably go into the world of 30 Rock. You know why? Because it's pretty much America, but everything's kind of more funny and interesting, right?
Yeah.
And sort of whimsical and goofy, right? That and or the same city, but instead it's the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. But either way, it's like, you know, New York sitcoms that are funny, right? That's where I'd probably go.
Which character would you be in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt?
I don't know. I'd probably end up being the Reverend or something.
I kind of feel like you're a Kimmy.
You know what? I am a Kimmy so much. Whereas you very much are my Titus Andromedan to
yes.
to
I thought you were going to say Jacqueline, so I'm pleased to hear that.
You're more of a Titus than a Jacqueline.
Yes.
I think you are the Titus to my
I'd
Kimmy.
stand in the center of Times Square and sing The Lion King with you for sure.
Yeah, if and only if we then sang Pinot Noir after that.
Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir.
Mid-sized car.
What about you? Same questions. Your question in reverse. What TV show would you go to?
The most boring answer in the world is I'd probably love to be a rich white person who is inexplicably well off, living in a flat with multiple good close people I have close relationships around me, and we have nice times and japes, and I'm probably dating. I'd probably date a few of them. And my parents are really rich, and I don't really have anything to worry about, and I'm somehow really successful in my career, even though I don't go to work very often.
Could I like this example anymore?
Who wouldn't want to, if you could live in who wouldn't, I mean, come on.
One of the friends. I'd be one of the friends from the show.
Surely.
Friends.
But I think Parks and Rec would maybe suit me better because like at least Leslie Knope has like morals, right?
Yeah, although here's the challenge. Wouldn't you rather live in New York City than Pawnee, Indiana? I mean, you know, you could you could wouldn't you rather hang out at Central Perk rather than eating some haunch burger in the, you know, from the drive-thru or whatever? Paunch burger.
Paunch burger. So yeah, it's a boring answer. It's not a very funny answer, but it would probably have to be Friends because it's just the nicest lifestyle ever. It's the Pleasantville of the 1990s, isn't it?
Yeah, it very much is. And much like Pleasantville, I know there are people to this very day who find a soothing mind balm by watching every episode of Friends on repeat. And
when Rachel's date didn't show up to take her to the prom, who offered to take her instead?
Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sure did. But he was a little bit too late because you know what? Chip showed up in the end.
Chip.
Oh, Chip.
Yeah.
right? And
You
Ross,
like that
Ross,
circle
his
background
heart
there.
broke once
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
And played his music.
Yeah, exactly. And you put your fingers in his hair and you're thinking, "Oh, it's greasy. It's wet. It's greasy." It's actually crispy.
It's crispy. In response to your question, which TV show would I go into for moral betterment? I'd probably have to go into The Walking Dead because I'm
Whoa.
pretty morally great, but I don't know how to kill zombies or survive in a zombie apocalypse, and I feel like that's some key knowledge that I could gain, so that's what I'm going to go for.
That is such a you answer. So you. I'm fine, so I'm gonna go fight zombies, whatever, in this TV show about zombies. Dude, you know what TV show that I'd actually rather go to? It's the Great British
Final
Bake Off.
answer.
But in it, I'd be good at baking.
You know, I'd like to be the winner of
Yeah,
British
exactly.
Bake Off.
Flash me in right at the end when I'm getting the big glass cake plate.
I thought I'd like to be the person who eats the cake. I don't need to win, I just need to be a taster. That's fine.
Yeah, make me one of them. I'll just be, who are you? I'm just in the background, right? But I do get cake. I do get cake. Hey, you'll never guess. Jennifer Love Hewitt just left me a voicemail. Do you know what she said? She said, "Hey, Anders, how's it going? Hope you're well. Anyway, just wanted to say, love the podcast, and I'm making sure to tell all my friends to follow you on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Plot Twisters Pod." Are we still on for Friday? We'll talk. Bye. So what do you want to do to this movie in our
One of the big problems I had with this film was with the sister character, as I mentioned.
wasn't mentioned very much?
She wasn't mentioned very much. She wasn't entirely believable, I think, in some of the stuff that she did.
Yeah.
She was potentially slightly problematic, although I might just be being a bit of an oversensitive snowflake here, but I think her...
You? No.
No, surely not.
No.
But she kind of vanishes, and what was funny was it was funny to me that at the end she was like, I think I'm gonna stay here because I can get into college here and I'm probably not going to in real life. And it was
Right.
like, then they have this shot of her at college and I literally was like, oh cool. So then, 2 weeks later she realizes that she can't get a proper job and she probably can't, like, I don't know, vote or whatever.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
There's some downsides to Pleasantville, baby. You just haven't experienced it. You've only been there for 2 weeks.
Because, like, it's not going to go too well. It's not going to go too well. Because let me tell you, women in the 1950s, not allowed to do a lot of stuff.
Nope. They weren't allowed to do most things.
Most things
that didn't specifically include cooking a roast. And like, so look, we both like this movie. We'll talk about it when we rate it in a second. It sounds like we both like this movie, but like,
yes.
So, Tobey Maguire, what was his name? David,
yeah.
So David gets
David Maguire.
right.
Yeah.
So Toby David Maguire, he comes back to his 90s house, right? There's his mom, who of course is the mom from Malcolm in the Middle. And they're talking, and it's really nice. And he says that nice thing about, like, there is no right car, there is no right life, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The thing is, probably after that, or at the very least the next day, right? Malcolm's mom is going to go, hey, where's your sister?
Where's my daughter?
Hey, where's my other child? Where has she gone?
And also...
Right? Also,
they don't really discuss how time passes in the TV world versus the real world.
Sure.
Because it's like it feels like they've come back and no time has really passed.
It's the same night. I think
so
an hour
what if
has
she
passed.
she goes off and lives her whole life and then we don't know how she gets back, but however she gets back, no time has passed. Exactly. Has time passed?
Well, I sort of think
What's
it's like
the
a
deal?
Jumanji rules, where like you can live a lifetime inside of that TV show, but if you come back, you go back to being the age you left, right? But like, hey, listen, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Maybe for our twist, we don't twist this movie at all, but instead we make a sequel to the movie Pleasantville, even more pleasant. This time it's personal, because we gotta go back for the sister because she
gotta rescue her.
She is trapped in a TV nightmare.
Pleasantville 2, let's save Jennifer.
Pleasantville 2, I'm coming for you, kid.
Coming for you, yeah. Back to the TV.
Back to the Pleasantville.
Yeah. It's your sister, Marty.
we got something's got to be done about your sister. Whoa! What is she turning into like an asshole or something? No. She's stuck in the 1950s.
She's stuck in the
We've
1950s
got
in a television set.
And that's the thing. And by the way, we went through that whole analysis of this movie without acknowledging that it's basically a time travel movie, and it's like it's Back to the Future, baby. It's Back to the Future.
It's Alice in Wonderland. It's Wizard of Oz. It's Back to the Future. It's all the same.
Jumanji, as we say.
Jumanji.
It's all of it.
Yeah. It's all the Truman Show. Same thing.
Same thing. Wizard of Oz. Oh, right. In Wizard of Oz, she just wakes up and then everything's the same,
That's
right?
what I'm saying, right?
Flip.
It's you go to another world and then you come back and it's all the same thing.
Seinfeld, Mad Men, whatever. It's all the same thing, right? Right? Dragon's Den, right? Get me out of here. I'm a celebrity. It's all the same thing, all right?
Strictly Come Dancing.
Strictly Come Dancing.
Great British Bake Off.
Summer Olympics 2010. It's all the same thing, right? Kellogg's, they're bringing out a new cereal. What is it? It's the same. It's all the same.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all been done. To quote the poets, the Bare Naked Ladies, it's all been done. Woo-hoo-hoo. The Chicken of China, the Chinese chicken. So we're making a sequel to the movie Pleasantville. What's the aim? What are we trying to do here? Are we trying to bring the sister back to the 90s?
Yeah. We need to get her back.
Okay.
And how much time do you think has passed? I'm going to say probably not much.
Well, it depends. I mean, how much time in the 50s? Maybe like a year. Okay? Give it a year.
Okay.
How much time in the 90s? It's the same night.
It's Jumanji time.
It's Jumanji. It's Jumanji.
Yeah, we're on
time.
Jumanji time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So David walks into the kitchen. He does the whole "there's no right car" speech.
Yeah.
And his mum's upset about what was she? Her
boyfriend's younger than her, and she didn't want to go away for the weekend.
Then I don't know. She's like, "So where's your sister?" And he's like, David's like, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
well,
yeah."
I kind of want him to tell her, and then she could go with him into the show.
Interesting twist. Okay, all right, yeah.
Could that be fun? Because then you can have the two mum characters meeting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Right. So what happened? Okay, all right. Here's what I'm thinking, right? He goes, "Here's the thing, Mom. Oh, so long story short, my sister and I got sucked into a TV show wherein we made some decisions that altered the course of the TV show. Everything turned technicolor, and then I escaped back to the regular times, but my sister decided she was going to stay on because, and I quote, I'll never get into college in the real world, so I'm going to stay here in a fictional TV show. And so I pressed the button on the remote control, flashed back into the future, and here I am."
And the mum's like, "Oh, right, so you tried to stop her, right?"
No, actually, totally didn't. I just said, I'll see you at some point, and I helped her get on a bus to somewhere else.
Right, because I understand that, like, okay, cool, you went in the TV show, right? Okay, I think I've got that. I think I've got my head around it.
Yeah.
What I'm not understanding here, David, is I'm assuming that when you were in the TV show, because you are a young white man, you probably had a kind of an okay time. And your sister, I don't feel like that's going to work out so well for her. So I'm confused as to why you didn't try to stop her from staying there.
Well, Mom, it's a good point. It's a good point. I really appreciate it. I didn't super think about that because we were in a place that everything's pleasant.
We've got a nice life here. I've got a nice house. I've provided for you kids.
Yeah.
And
listen, Jennifer decided that she was going to roll the dice.
We could have got her a tutor.
Yeah, we really could have. Plus they don't even have the internet then, and also modern medicine. It's the 50s.
We have books in the future.
So anyway,
books. We have books now.
So they're definitely the mom's definitely questioning the decision, and the brother's like, no, it's fine. Look, let's go watch. So he switches on Pleasantville, right?
Yes.
And now it's just a marathon night, right? So maybe now it's like a later season, okay? And to his horror,
It gets kind of Black Mirror.
well, yeah, I mean, and if like what I'm thinking is he turns on Pleasantville and it's not season 5 like he remembers it, where
Yeah.
Bud's
Yeah.
working at the hardware store or whatever. It's like actually pretty messed up, right? Like Pleasantville is super messed up, right? Like everything's all in color now, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of violence, okay? And even though everybody turned color, the mayor and all those people who were resisting the Technicolor, they're still fighting it, and they're still super not up for this change. And as a result, they've formed like a militia, and they're just, pillowcases full of doorknobs, swinging it around,
Yeah.
just,
And it's kind of like in The Good Place where things start being in the wrong place and it starts getting a bit wacky. Yeah.
yeah. It's super messed up. And then so he turns to his mom and he goes, "Yeah, we're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to go back right now. We need to save Jennifer.
We need to save
We
her.
gotta go." Right?
Okay, so we need some kind of like thread to draw David back in as well, I think.
Okay.
Because he needs to have his own plotline once he's there. I would say a cool thing would be for him to want... Because here's the thing, right? When he left the mother character, the TV mother, so Betty, I kind of thought she was going to go with him.
Me too.
Because a lot of her character is that she almost feels like she's out of place and she kind of realizes stuff.
Yeah.
It was like she maybe belongs in the real world, and I guess there's a bit of a kind of logistical jump here perhaps, but I felt like she was going to go, so I wonder if maybe there's an element of him that goes, do you know what, I should have brought her here. There is so much more for her here than there was in Pleasantville. Because also what we don't know is we don't know if Beyond Pleasantville is actual America in the 1950s, or if it's more TV show world. So it's like, yes, she might go off, right? Yes, she might go off and go to another city, but that might be the same. So it's like, she needs to be in the real world, so she needs to come out the show, so he needs to go and get her. So that's his thing.
I love that. Yeah.
They go into the... They still have the remote, right?
He's still got it.
He's still got it. Yeah, he gets
still
it
got
out the drawer. Yeah. And there's loads of remotes in there, and it's like, oh, which one is the right one? There's so many remotes.
It's the flippin' wild-looking, all-metal chrome one. Don't you remember?
Yeah.
Right? It's that one.
It's that one.
Not the Comcast remote. Not the Sony remote. Not the Apple TV. It's the big... huge honking metal one with the big red button on it.
Yeah, and it's got like that Atom logo thing on it. Yeah, because science. And so they press that, and then they turn up, and then it would be in color then. So things are in color now, right at the end.
Yeah, and stuff's on fire also.
Stuff's on fire, and maybe so things have gotten weird, right? Things have gotten a bit strange.
Yeah.
So for the mum, her thing is because right at the end of the film with the real mum, I think I'm gonna have to refer to real mum and TV mum. With real mum, she's having a bit of like a crisis of confidence towards the end.
Yeah.
So for her, there could be some kind of development in terms of, I don't know, maybe she is able to help people and she's able to teach people stuff, and then she finds that it's really nice teaching people, and then she decides to become a teacher or something. I don't know. Right?
It doesn't matter. Something like that would be fine. Something like that
yeah.
would be fine.
And for David, he goes back and he finds TV mum, and he kind of has to convince her, like, oh, you should come back to the real world. And she's like, oh, no, I don't know. I really like this guy, Mr. Johnson. And he's like, well, maybe he can come too.
He can come too. That's fine. Like, we've got room.
Dude, we've got so many art galleries.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
Hey man, you ever heard of pop art? You ever heard of modern art? You ever heard of interpretive dance? Have you ever heard of
movies?
Yeah,
Colorful movies.
Have you ever heard of movies? Have you ever heard of memes, for goodness sake? There's a lot of shit. Dude, you're going to love the internet.
Let me tell you about some stuff.
Yeah.
We've got the internet, we've got memes, we got YouTube.
You like that 10-page
like
art
now?
book I showed you? Good God.
Let me
Watch
tell you, you're going to
Google
forget about
stuff on
that
my
pretty
phone.
quickly. Yeah,
Let's
you're going to
go
forget about that
already.
pretty quickly.
Let's go already. Come, let me buy you you like paint, right? Let me buy you a tub of the blackest black, and you can really have some fun with that, right?
Vanta
you know what I'm
black,
saying,
yeah.
right? Let's do some Vanta black, like crazy stuff, and then we'll also paint it the pinkest pink. You know what I'm saying?
And then he becomes Banksy.
He is Banksy. Nobody knows it.
This is an origin story for Banksy.
Jeff Daniels' character from Pleasantville is Banksy.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong, people. Prove me wrong. Nobody
Prove me
knows.
wrong. You can't do it.
Nobody knows who he is. So
Nobody knows.
checkmate, right? You know.
Yep. Does he even exist? Is he just a TV show? So
Yeah.
then they have to go to the college.
Yeah, they're there.
And they have to convince. Ooh, I have an idea.
Okay.
They have to convince Jennifer to come back, but she's been like brainwashed.
Yeah, totally. Because
By
she's
the
been
world?
living in the 50s for so long. She's all 50-ified, right? She didn't want to come
55.
back.
She didn't want to come back. She's having a good time. She's, learned how to bake.
Yeah,
nice
she's studying home ec.
muffins.
Yeah, she's getting a master's in home economics.
But everything's really pleasant, right? Everything's really sunny. So
Totally.
maybe she's like, I can't go back to things being sad and uncertain and there being sad things in the world.
Yeah.
And then David has to do his whole like, yeah, but the things that are sad about life are what actually make it worth living.
Sure.
Because if you don't have sad things, then you don't appreciate the good things or something.
Your classic, you need the rain so you appreciate the sunshine. I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Fine.
there's that.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, okay.
Does he also go, and if that doesn't convince you, watch this. And he shoots webs out of his fingers because he is also the Spider-Man for some reason in this universe.
Yeah.
That's an optional extra. We'll use that at the pitch meeting.
I get that you're not convinced by the internet, but let me try another spin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, I can walk on walls.
Spin this web. Here's what I'm thinking. At first she resists it because she's loving life and she's got her whole place there. But then after they really connect, she reveals this place is nuts. Okay. I don't want to live in the 50s. Not really. Not like that. Right. And she'll, they don't even give us college degrees. They just gave me an apron. Right. I need to get out of here so bad.
And a baby basket.
Yeah. Here's where we're at, right? You got David, a.k.a. Tobey Maguire, and he's got his two moms, Pleasantville mom and 90s mom, and his sister. And they all decide, all right, yeah, cool, we're going to go back to the 90s, right? Because it's better for all of us. Oh, and by the way, also, the painter guy can come too. They click the button on the remote, and nothing happens.
No batteries in the 50s.
there's no batteries. No, it doesn't work because you can't take that many people into the future.
Right. You have to choose.
You have to choose.
Some people, yeah.
Right.
You can only take as many people who left back.
Yeah. And that's really hard because what it means is, and I hate to be that guy, but I think that his TV mom has to stay in the past.
Yeah, TV mom has to stay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what we learn is that you can't live. You are anachronistic, okay? And anachronisms can't stand. Not in Pleasantville time, not in Presentville time, and not in past Presentville, a.k.a. 1998 or 1999. You can't leave someone in the past because it just doesn't work. And so the sister has to come back.
Yeah.
TV
Maybe
mom
she
has to
could
come
go
back.
for a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe she could go for a bit and experience the world and then comes back and then there's a bit of like, it's just too overwhelming to learn all these new things. So I'm just going to try and make the best of what I've got. Maybe. To make that feel better.
I think
make
so.
Make it sit better.
Yeah, sure, for sure. And I think what ends up happening is they realize that, and it's sad. But what I like is, so they're about to zap back to the 90s, right? Back to the 90s, and his Back to the Future, yep. Right? Which is the past, right? The old, not the Old West, and what happens is David says to his Pleasantville mom, it doesn't matter where you are because there's no right place to be and there's no right car to drive or whatever. And then Malcolm, the middle mom, is like, didn't you just say that to me? You know, mom, give me a second, right? There isn't a right place, there isn't a right time. But you need to pursue you, and you need to listen to your heart. And she turns to Jeff Daniels' character, the painter guy, and she goes, I'll listen to my heart. And then Jeff Daniels goes, I'll listen to my heart too. And then they kiss because they're in love. And I guess they move to Santa Fe or whatever and just like paint and do pottery. And then Tobey Maguire and his Malcolm in the Middle mom and his sister, they go back to present day, which is, of course, 1998. And because it's 1998, like all movies from that era, some Smash Mouth song plays in the background and it ends.
Beautiful.
There's only one more thing that we need to do, and that is to rate this movie.
Yes.
I would love to know, on a scale of 1 to 5 malted milkshakes, how many milkshakes would you give the movie Pleasantville? I
will rate the movie Pleasantville 4 milkshakes out of 5.
Me too.
Because it had some great ideas. It was very cool, very groundbreaking, I guess, in its ideas. Very technically interesting. But there was a lot of holes.
Good, but with holes.
Like a nice cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, 4 for me. How about you?
I'm the same. 4 out of 5, right? It was pretty good. And if you tweak it, it could be really good. But it was a bit messy. It was a bit thick. And it was a bit chewy. And I think, note to the chef, too many ingredients in this stew. 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Hey, Emma, Pleasantville, it was good, but it kind of gave me the creeps. I mean, did you know that the books there are blank?
What?
Yeah, if you go into the library, all the books, they have covers, but there's nothing on the inside.
Oh. What were you doing in the library?
I don't know, I got lost. Because, books. Right? Anyway, thanks for listening to this episode of Plot Twisters.
Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later, y'all. I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. I'll be there for you. 'Cause you'll be there. You're still in bed at 10. Your work began at 8. Clap, 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 clap. Right? You're so late for work. Right? You are so fired. You are so fired.